In this video, my patrons ask me questions and I answer them, coming right up. Hey everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and it is time for the Patreon Ask Me Anything for June 2018. And I would love, before I get into it, I'd like to so humbly thank all my patrons who support me on Patreon. So starting with Edward Ryder, you ever think about playing with Naban with Water Trap Weaver? I have a standard deck with them and Trickster in it, and them all together slows my opponent down. The other is modern, also has Master of Waves. Now Naban is a super cool card, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with the video that Magic AIDS has done with Naban, with basically just jammed a Merfolk deck that was like pure wizards, which also featured Water Trap Weaver. Now, in terms of standard, I'm a little apprehensive to like just, I don't know, waste time because of Goblin Chain Whirler. Mono red is arguably the best deck, one of the bigger decks that you have to be prepared for, and things like Silvergill Adept and Naban will just get eaten up by that card. So you're restricted to just completely 2-drops with the Merfolk deck, which maybe is fine, but I just don't really want to put any work or effort into that format until the red deck has cycled out, which is going to be soon. Like Bomac Courier and Kari Zev and a slew of other cards that came from Kaladesh, you know, including Chandra, Torch of Defiance. They're all going to sweep away with the next rotation, so from there I'd be much more interested in focusing on Merfolk, because I'm sure as the mono red deck disappears, Goblin Chain Whirler will not be an attractive option for that format. Now with Modern, it's interesting. I love the idea, but I just haven't taken the time to do it. There's so many options to explore in Modern, not only with Naban, but you know, even with Fairy Conclave right now. The deck is really new and very fresh, and there are a lot of ways of exploring this build that I haven't fully maximized. And I really want to do that before I go on to any sort of weird Naban builds. But I will, it's always in the back of my mind, because like it's a cool card, really maximizes on a lot of effects that we have in Merfolk. Doubles the Silvergill Adept triggers, doubles Merfolk Trickster triggers, doubles everything, doubles the tokens on Master of Waves, and of course doubles the triggers on Water Trap Weaver, one of my favorite cards that came out when it did in Ixalan. So, but thank you very much for asking. Moving on, we've got Rhino. Rhino, any plans to stream leagues? Yes and no. I'm planning on streaming some Arena when I can get my sponsorship set up. Wizards of the Coast is being a little slow on setting that up for me before I can go about streaming some Arena. But aside from that, maybe I'll have some plans to stream with the rest of Team WoW, like Rodney Top 8 Thompson and Andrew Day 2 Dryden, maybe going somewhere late in August when my classes are done. But thanks for asking. So Stefan Kipperberg Helensvig asks, hey Nikachu, what's your stance on bluffing with Aether Vial? If you do, when do you apply it? Okay, so this is a very exciting question, very interesting, because the whole concept of bluffing with Aether Vial sort of came up maybe like 4 years ago and then sort of died, and then all of a sudden a Merfolk YouTuber, John Anderson, revitalized the idea, should we be activating Aether Vial at the end of our opponent's turn every single turn to represent something, perhaps induce something from our opponents because they think that we might be threatening a Lord or a Harbinger or a Merfolk Trickster. And the short answer to this is no, you do not want to be doing this all the time, but I'm going to go over maybe some exceptions, or maybe to be a little bit more clear where you should be doing it. And I thought a little bit more about how and when and where we should be activating our Aether Vial as a bluff. So in general, in Paper Magic, no, do not be bluffing turn after turn after turn activations with Aether Vial. And the simple answer is because you share time, you share a clock with your opponent, and you're just going to help yourself run out of time. It's as simple as that. You take time activating the Aether Vial, your opponent's going to take some time to think about your activation, and then you're going to take some time untapping that Aether Vial every single turn. That's not where you want to be. Let me tell you, when I was in Grand Prix Las Vegas, I had 2 control matchups that went to time, and I won them, but they went to time and they went to turns, and I was able to win it within the turns allotted to me. But if I decided to bluff with Aether Vial every single turn, no way. Those would have been draws, guaranteed. I promise you, those would have been draws. And in general, you don't want to be doing this on Paper Magic. Watch the pros play with humans. Are they bluffing with Aether Vial every single turn? No, they're not, because they have the same opinion that you cannot waste your time doing this in a paper match. It's too important. So some exceptions to that rule would be, for example, you're in a top 8. So if you're in a top 8, you can take as much time as you want if that's what you want to do. You can activate the Aether Vial, and you're not under any sort of time pressure. So long as you keep up a reasonable pace of play, you can do that. So that is possible. Another thing is doing it online. You do have enough time in general online. Maybe against some control decks you might not want to do it, because I know for myself sometimes I go to time. So I would say maybe against control decks, if you're up on time, activate your Aether Vials. If you're low on time, don't activate your Aether Vials as bluffs at end of turn. But in general, you don't really see me doing this online, because this is... I'll give you 2 reasons. First, this is not what I normally do on paper. Whatever I do on paper, I want to emulate online. I want to practice for the same style of magic, if you get what I'm saying. But the other reason is you can't activate your Aether Vial at end of turn all the time. You have to be patient, or you have to be able to catch these niche situations where you don't want to do that. For example, let's say you have Master of Waves in hand against a control deck, just an example, and you have an Aether Vial on 2, and at end of turn, you activate it. Well, that invites your opponent to play Vendilion Click on you, and then perhaps see your Master of Waves and grab it before you could do anything. Whereas if you just left it on, like, the thing is, when you activated the Aether Vial on 2, your opponent was trying to play Vendilion Click to snatch your 2-drop from your hand, but instead they see something even better, whereas you would have been able to keep that Master of Waves in your hand if you did not activate that Aether Vial. So I'm sort of trying to say, sometimes inducing things doesn't work in your favor, and most of the time it will not do anything at all, actually. I mean, you're going to activate your Aether Vial, your opponent's going to think for a little while, and then they're just going to say yes. So the advantages from bluffing just randomly, I don't think there's a big advantage out of it. I really don't. So, but I do bluff. I do bluff with my Aether Vial. I'm going to go over good situations, very select situations where you do want to bluff your Aether Vial. So one of them is when you have Master of Waves in your hand and you have 2 Aether Vials in play, 1 on 4, 1 on 2, and against a control deck, you activate the Aether Vial on 2 first to draw out Vendilion Click from your opponent's hand, and then you activate Aether Vial on 4. It's a pretty free way of trying to get Master of Waves in play. So that's one particular bluff that I would want to make. Another one is I want to induce my opponent to do something when I have an Aether Vial on 1 and my opponent has a very spell-heavy deck. So whether it's like Jeskai Control or Jund or maybe even Living End, I will activate my Aether Vial on 1 to represent Curse Catcher, and that will force my opponent to do something, and I think that's a good thing. No matter what they do, it's in my favor, because that gives me more information to work with on my turn and forces them to tap out prematurely at the end of their turn. So I do like to activate Aether Vial on one. I don't always remember to do it, but when I'm sharp and I'm paying attention, I do want to activate Aether Vial on one against spell-heavy decks. So maybe Jeskai or Jeskai Control, Jund, Living End. And that actually happened. That actually came up at Grand Prix Las Vegas. I was able to induce my opponent to Living End prematurely, and I don't remember how I responded. Maybe my opponent just put like one creature from the graveyard to the battlefield, and it was just an insignificant like amount of pressure, or maybe I spell pierced it. Whatever happened, I won that match. Is there any other specific situations where I might want to bluff with Aether Vial? I think those are the basic ones. Like I pretty often will bluff with the Aether Vial on one, because it's the most significant to our opponents, the one that's really going to make them think. And you could do that even later on in the game when you have like an Aether Vial on one. So anyway, I hope that clears things up with a lot of people. Remember, just don't blindly be activating your Aether Vial over and over and over again. Also consider, you know, against, for example, let's say Jund or some sort of deck with Electrolyze or what's it called? Kolaghan's Command, something that can deal 2 damage to one of your creatures. If you bluff with Aether Vial and activate it randomly at your opponent's turn, it might entice someone to play Electrolyze and kill a Lord that's only with 2 toughness, or Kolaghan's Command and kill a Lord with something with 2 toughness. Whereas if you had nothing to play and you just let they pass the turn to you, you would constantly be threatening to Vial a Lord in play to make the creatures 3/3s. Are you catching me here? So sometimes if you bluff with Aether Vial, it will backfire in a bad way, and it's actually better that you keep passing the turn with an Aether Vial open and always on 2 to threaten pumping up your Lords to 3/3s in response to taking 2 damage. Anyway, it's a very interesting question, so thank you very much for asking, Stefan. And lastly, Joshua St. Dennis, what are some of the ways you prepare before a Grand Prix? Do you have any pre-event rituals to help you get in the right mindset? Now, first off, I do want I sort of understand what you're saying, but for me I just want to be comfortable going to the Grand Prix. I want to be like psychologically comfortable. I hope to get in at least some meaningful playtesting before I go to the tournament. I would like to make sure that I'm like pretty comfortable with my 75. I don't want to I don't want to like cry over like 1 or 2 cards. I just wanted to be like, okay, this is good. I'm happy with it. I'm settled with it. Okay, it's finalized, it's done. I'm not going to change anything. Let's submit that deck list. So I would also recommend very strongly to a lot of you out there, you know, don't be worried about your list. Just say, okay, this is the list I'm gonna play this tournament. Hopefully I play against all the decks all these sideboard cards line up against. I hope I play against all the decks that this main deck lines up against. Let's do this, because it's a waste of energy and to like be afraid that your deck is not perfect. There's a lot of people who are under the pressure of their deck needing to be perfect. They don't know what to do. They're making last-minute decisions. I don't want to be a last-minute decision guy. I want it to be prepared well in advance. So that's what I do. But like the next thing that I prepare for Grand Prix is I need good sleep. I really need good sleep, and I want to sleep long. So I make sure that I travel with people that I think I can sleep with. Hopefully they don't snore very much or at all. And we have a comfortable hotel. We once stayed at like this Airbnb, and it was just a disaster. They didn't like it had no soap, it had like no toilet paper. Anyway, make sure that you're staying at a place that you know you're going to be comfortable in. And I've got it down with the science. I have melatonin, which is this hormone that helps you go to sleep. It's just a pill that releases a chemical, or sorry, a hormone from your brain that your brain normally gives releases anyway, that helps you go to sleep. But the second thing that I now use are earplugs. Earplugs help me a lot. It just kills all background noise. It muzzles it very strongly. I love it. I love this system, and it's worked so far with the melatonin plus earplug strategy. I'm doing great. So those are some things that help me, I guess, physically get there. But if you want to talk about just like mentally, like I don't play any sort of music. I do a lot of things that make me comfortable. Like I make sure that I have the right sleeves. I like my brand of sleeves. I always have a cup of coffee, like every single morning. And I have to walk around while I'm like waiting for my round to start. So like for like 2 hours, I'm gonna be going up and down the tables, but I'm just gonna relax. I'm not gonna put any pressure on myself. I don't know, those are the closest things I have to actual like rituals. I don't have anything particularly special other than I have to have my coffee. I have to have like, I don't know, my winter shirt or something like that. So thank you very much for the question, Josh. And I would like to thank all my patrons once again for supporting me on Patreon. This has been Nikachu with his Patreon Ask Me Anything for June 2018.